Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for Ryan Harris, everybody.
Thank you, Logan. Nice to be with you, mate.
Welcome to the show, Ryan. Welcome to the Become Your Own Superhero podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate. It's nice to be talking to you.
Well, it's a great opportunity right now to connect with like-minded individuals, and the opportunity to have you on the show was a very exciting prospect, and certainly to some of the people that I've spoken about. But if you were in an elevator and someone had never heard about cricket or come across you and you had 30 seconds, how would you describe Ryan Harris?
Oh, that's a good question. How would you describe myself? Geez, someone who loves having a crack, goes 100 miles an hour in whatever I do, as in a bull of a gate. Respects people, likes people, loves sport, and a horrible golfer. Frustrated golfer. Sorry, not a horrible golfer. Frustrated golfer. That would be probably about it.
I think that's...
And loves a beer, sorry. Loves a beer.
Frothy. It's not a bad shout, because from all accounts, from a lot of people that I have, long before you and I even got into contact, said that you're an incredibly humble individual, one of the hardest workers that they've ever seen, and I'm sure this gets brought up a lot. And, you know, it's rare to come across individuals like that. And I think now is the platform for you to blow off some of that steam and you know, maybe big note yourself tonight. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of talking about myself. I can tell you that, a big noting, but I can share a few things with you that I think will be beneficial, and hopefully for your listeners they can learn a couple of things. And because what you talk about there, I wasn't always humble. I wasn't always hardworking. And I had to learn probably the hard way, and we can go into that tonight. I mean, you know, when I was a bit young, when I was younger, I left school, went to England, played cricket, came back, had a season at home, virtually earned a contract with South Australia, and then all of a sudden I thought I was a superstar. I thought I was a professional cricketer, and probably wasted, learned a lot along the way, but wasted probably a little bit of talent for about probably 4 or 5 years, and it nearly cost my career in the end. So I was a bit of a party animal. I didn't mind a drink, didn't mind chasing the skirt, and it was affecting my professional career. And it took me, didn't take probably until I actually lost the contract with South Australia that I lost it and then regained it within 3 weeks, because someone else hadn't decided not to take one. And they sort of put me back on the list, and I guess the rest is history. I had a coach at the time who we didn't necessarily see eye to eye, who was a very good mate of mine now, and I look back then, and it was I thought it was all him at the time, but it wasn't. It was me, and in not respecting him. And so he sat me down and gave me basically the ultimatum and said, you know, if you want to be a professional cricketer, you've got a second chance. A lot don't do that. A lot don't get that, and I guess away I went. I said no to a few nights out and got serious about training, got strong, got fit, and managed to gain a few yards with the ball. Went from a sweatband swinger to a bloke who hit the bat a little bit harder, and was able to consistently put the ball in the right spot. And I guess the rest is history. So, and when it comes to being humble, for me, it wasn't about, you know, playing cricket was to try and play for Australia, but it was more about you know, winning stuff for the state. At the time, South Australia, and then eventually Queensland, and then went on to play some Test cricket. But yeah, we can dive into that in a bit of detail. But I always very appreciative of the opportunities I've had and the people who've helped me along the way.
Well, why don't we dive into that, Ryan? Where was your rock bottom?
Well, that was probably it, to be honest. Cricket-wise, I've obviously had some personal tragedy as well, which is probably the word. I mean, I lost my mum 14 years ago this year. That was probably the worst I've had, to be honest. But professionally-wise, cricket-wise, that was probably it. As I said, I had a coach that at the time I didn't see the positive in it, but he cared about me. He cared a lot about me, and you know, he was a great mate with a good mate of mine. I was still very good mates with Darren Lehman, Darren was trying his best, and he wasn't around a lot, I guess, because he was away playing for Australia a little bit. But Wayne Phillips was always, he's a pretty funny guy, Wayne Phillips. For those who've heard him talk, he's a pretty good character. And he treated me what at the time I thought was pretty harshly. Like, I was injured a bit. I'd go to training, he wouldn't put my name on the board. He'd make me do my stuff outside of sessions, and looking back at it, I deserved it because I didn't respect what he was doing and the program that we were running. And when that opportunity came, the opportunity, I guess, was taken away and then came back. He sat me down, and again, it took me a little bit longer to realise, but he actually did care for me. He saw something in me. He wanted me to do well. He wanted me to, fulfil my potential, I guess, what he saw and what everyone else saw. That's why they went back to me, I guess. That was probably it went from being rock bottom to, hang on a minute, I've got something I can do about this now. I've got another opportunity. And again, like I said, you don't get those very often. Yeah. And even when I didn't sort of receive that first round, that contract, there was a little bit of anger there, but I was like, far out, what am I going to do? But, and also it was, I guess, a bit of, I'm going to show you, I'm going to earn that back. Sort of pull my finger out and really have a crack as well. But then, that second conversation he had was excellent. So, it's sort of, I guess from there, the rest is history. It sort of, pulled me in the line. And as I said, I made a lot better decisions, trained a lot harder, looked after myself a lot more.
I want to explore this experience of losing a parent. And for anyone listening out there that has lost a parent, I personally haven't had to go through that yet. It's one of those things you hope you never will, but, death's an inevitability. Right. What impact did your mum have when she was alive? Did she have on you?
Huge, because ever since bar playing cricket overseas, she was virtually at every game of cricket I played. Or interstate every now and then. They didn't travel a lot back then. From the day that I started playing sport, it was either my mum or my dad or both. Usually both would take me to cricket. I played a lot of soccer when I was young, but they were there all the time. And the club I grew up at in Adelaide, Salisbury at the time, Salisbury District Cricket Club, now Northern Districts. I was a part of that club since I was 12, and mum and dad would, when we sort of joined it, it was a very family-orientated club. Great seniors, great junior system, but also a great senior club as well. We all just it was like a big family, became a big family to us quite quickly. And we would go back to the club every Saturday night or every Sunday afternoon if we were playing Sundays. And it just became a huge family club. So for her and my dad, who's still sort of involved in that club back at home, but it was, everyone got to know her. She didn't mind a red wine. She loved being a bit of, I guess, the centre of attention at times. She'd help, she'd speak to everyone at the club. And so, having her around was a big thing. It was, cricket without mum for a while there was pointless, I guess. And it was a huge, huge loss for obviously the whole family, but for me, not knowing, looking over when I did, I managed, there's a bit of a story behind that, but I managed to play the game. She died midweek and I played, I wasn't going, so I had no interest in playing, but I ended up playing the week after, being pushed from my older brother and my dad and a few other family members. And I just went out and didn't really, I obviously I was still part of a team with my team there, my Premier Cricket team, and didn't have the motivation to play, but they got me through as well. I ended up taking 14 wickets in the game, which was quite amazing. It was quite amazing how it all worked out. But, looking over and seeing virtually my whole family, because they're all from Adelaide, a lot of them from Adelaide, and my brother he lives in Sydney, but he obviously was down there, and seeing everyone there supporting, me, but also the family, and just, it was an away game, but a lot of sort of older guys that probably watch cricket but just go to home games, they were all there as well. It was just a great support for the club as well, for our family. So, it was a huge loss. It was a big hole not having it. Obviously, not long after that, I think it was a year after that, year and a half, I moved away to Queensland, and Obviously, I left my dad. My brother, as I said, my brother at the time was here, actually. He was living here. That was part of the reason I moved. And then he moved back not long after I moved here. But, my dad, I guess, it was easy for him to come and visit us in Queensland. He's done that. He doesn't live with us, but he spends a lot of time with us up to this day. So it's, it was huge. Mum not seeing any of my sort of international career was disappointing again, but I always had a sort of sitting on my shoulder, I guess. So it was, it was a huge loss.
I thank you for sharing that, Ryan. It's really powerful, and I think with the benefit of hindsight now, and I'll come back to this in a second, just that comment regarding playing, just a week or so later, the commitment that you make as a sportsman, or especially to a cricketer, the impact of not playing and contributing would probably make you feel worse than not playing.
Yeah.
That'd be a fair assumption.
Yeah, and absolutely. Yeah. And it's an old cliche, and you hear it a lot. If mum was here, what would you be doing? And I'll be playing. And that was what my brother and my dad kept saying. Like, as if, her life was cricket, and her family, and she's here, she's still alive. You're playing this game on the weekend. And it took me, as I said, they pushed me a lot to do that, to play, and I couldn't see it that way at the time. And then I did it, and then sat down and ended it and had a beer. And I'm glad they did, because I don't know what I would have done that weekend. I probably wouldn't have gone to cricket. Who knows? I might have been pissed for 2 days or 3 days, and that's not the right thing to do, I guess. And so to have such good family, and strong family, and good mates, really strong mates around, that pushed me to do that. And it's again, as I said, I repeat myself, but it's the old cliche that what would you be doing if they're alive? And doing something that mum loved watching me do, that was, and my brother and I said, my dad and my mates kept saying that. I did it. Doing what I did that day, I guess, just straight away made me think that she's going to be very proud. She would have been very proud of seeing what I did.
That's really great. And what I was going to just circle back to, with the benefit of hindsight now, what are some of the techniques and the tools that you've used to get over that grief in the years since, that you might be able to share with people that might be going through something similar right now?
Oh, far out. It's a really good question, because I haven't. Looking back at it now, it was cricket. It was sport. It was just wanting to. I guess that I'd started to play pretty good cricket then. I was starting to see the light. I guess, as I said before, changed my lifestyle. Probably 2 years before that, I think it was, or a year and a half before that, and I used it as huge motivation. Obviously the thought of, and I had no idea even when I moved, that I was going to move before she was alive, or the journey I guess I was about to embark on. Not long, only, as I said, probably 2.5 years after she died. After she died, that I started playing for Australia, and it was a little bit longer after that again. So I had no idea that was. But I used it all as motivation, I guess. It was. I just wanted her to be proud of what I was doing, and obviously my dad as well. My dad was with me along the way, the whole way, and I guess I used it as motivation more than anything. It was obviously a huge loss, huge grief. It was funny because Mum used to ring me a lot, and I used to say every now and then, Mum, what are you ringing me for? You rang me 20 minutes ago, and it's amazing what you do for that phone call after they're gone. You just want that. You'd have her ringing every 10 minutes if she could, or you could. So I sort of took that a bit on board too, and it just, it was just more the motivation and everything. As I said, I had some really good people around me, I guess, that helped me deal with it, and we dealt with it together. It wasn't as if I tucked it all away and held on to it. I had, obviously a great father and a great brother and a great extended family and some really good mates. So that really helped. There wasn't, I guess, in answer to your question, there wasn't something I could put my finger on. It was just a lot of different factors, I guess.
Look, it's pretty apparent, like a really strong support network and something to focus your energy into. Super duper important. Yeah. And a game like cricket, which involves so much dedication to the physical and the mental and the emotional and even the spiritual side of things, especially if you really truly love the game, like safe to say we both do, right? And so from the other side of the family, from your dad, what did he instill in you that's been really valuable in your career, in life in general?
Oh, support. He's always, as I said, they've always been at my sport. And one thing I guess I remember, I always say about my dad is, even to the day I was still playing Test cricket, he always knew better than I did. He always gave me advice. He didn't play a lot. He played a little bit of sport when he was sort of growing up, but he was, early days, I'd get off the school bus and he'd be there waiting in the car and drive me into the city to train with underage squads. And, he was there along the way. He was talking to a lot of coaches and not, again, he always proclaimed he was never the professional, never the coach, but he was always pushing me. He always pushed me to even throwing me balls out the front yard, or every time I got out a certain way, he'd always come and try and talk to me about it. And so he was always pushing me. He was always making sure that I was, trying to do as best I could. When I moved away from home, obviously, didn't have as much control over that because he didn't know what I was doing all the time. But when he sort of got, even going fast forwarding, when he got word of the way I sort of nearly lost the contract, and again the story I just told, he was back onto my case. Said, if you want it, this is what you got to do, and he was always on to me. So I guess the pressure, but not the pressure again when I was younger to push me where, to do well. He just wanted me to be happy, and obviously not pushing me to something I didn't want to do. But making sure that, getting me there on time, being at training on time, making sure I was prepared. Even in schoolwork, which I hated, he tried to help me out as much as he could, and we'd come to serious arguments before, I'd get home, do my homework. Within an hour, we're having arguments about what I couldn't understand. I just hated doing school, but he was always there and pushing me, and again, a great support, to get me to where I got to, I guess.
And I've got a couple of brothers, and I've certainly learnt from some lessons from them, and certainly taken a few hidings and dished out a few. From your brother, what's been his biggest influence on your life to this point?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. My brother's 9 years older than me, so he actually left home quite young. He left home as a 16-and-a-half-year-old to move from Adelaide to Sydney to take up an apprenticeship as an aircraft engineer. So he moved over from that to move to Sydney to live with my mum's brother at the time, who looked after him, to do all his apprenticeships and all that on his study and that. So, when I was a young bloke, I remember flying over and seeing when I was old enough, flying over and seeing him. I don't remember a lot of cricket in Adelaide. I was quite young then. Obviously I remember going to a few games and getting the ball thrown to me and wanting everyone to throw me the ball, that sort of stuff. But I don't remember a lot of that with him. But he moved over to Sydney. He played a little bit of lower grade cricket. But he's always one again. Another one who's been a great support. He's a bit smarter streetwise than me. He's studied money and he's studied all that sort of stuff. So he's sort of been my sounding board for financial stuff. And obviously I've learned a lot along the way. But, he was always giving me good advice, investing, all that sort of stuff. But he'd watch every ball I played, but virtually bowl or even bat. And, again, he'd try and give me some advice but he was also he's obviously a great cricket lover, and he'd ask me a lot about how we plan and what we do and what detail we go to. And, he was very lucky to, he's a massive fan as well. So he's very lucky to meet some great people along the way, some Test cricketers, and he's very thankful for that. But yeah, he's always been a great sounding board and a great, I guess, second father in a way. Yeah, the way he's sort of helped me through.
And you're a happily married man with two beautiful children? Yeah,
happily married. I've got a 5-year-old who turned 5 yesterday, actually, on the 26th of May. And I've got a little feisty 3-year-old girl who three and a half going on 17. It's very happily, very, very, very great kids. They're obviously they're at the age now where they're understanding a lot and a lot of fun.
And your wife, how long have you guys been together?
Oh, I should have done some research on that. We've been married now probably, I think it's 8 years. We got together just before I moved to Brisbane. I moved to Brisbane. She came up a bit later, so we got together at about 2005, I think, or 6. I'm not great with dates and memories, but we sort of known each other. She used to, years ago, date a guy through a cricket. We played a couple of years at the cricket club, and we sort of met, and then we reacquainted once we were both sort of single, and hit it off. And as I said, we sort of met, but then I think it was about 4 months or 5 months later, I ended up moving. The opportunity came up, and I went, and she came up about 4 months later. So it's been together ever since. So I'm pretty lucky to have someone to, give her life up in Adelaide to come and move away and be together. And been lucky there. So I've looked after her. She's been a great support as well. She obviously didn't know Mum either, but she's had a lot of people talk about what a great person she was, and she often says, she'd love to have met her and sort of spent some time with her. But she's been a great support through the whole time.
I've shared with you my partner's surname, Ryan, which is maiden over, which is it's legitimately true.
It is phenomenal.
She's I met her in the streets of Melbourne in the middle of the day, stone cold sober, and we're on our second date when I found that out. I was just, I'm not even religious. I just gave her one of those and I said, thank you, God.
Thank you.
And she knew nothing about cricket, but she's become a massive fan and become a bit of a local legend down at Melbourne University Cricket Club, where I currently play.
Yeah.
She loves cricket.
Right.
Does your wife love cricket?
She never loved it. She sort of grew up with an SANFL background, so AFL. Obviously, the SANFL, the feeder into the AFL, and her old man didn't quite make that level. She had some great mates that played at that level, but so she grew up with football down in Adelaide. So cricket wasn't a huge thing. She didn't know too much about it, but she soon learned quite a bit about it, with it being front and centre of her life, definitely.
Yeah, I think the importance of having someone that as a life partner that doesn't hate cricket is paramount. If you're a passionate cricketer or passionate football or whatever it might be, like having someone that really dislikes the game that you love is probably a recipe for disaster, in my opinion.
It probably would. She wouldn't be here today, put it that way. She didn't like cricket or sport, but I think look, she didn't really. I wouldn't say she got really invested in it. I didn't really mind that, because I didn't really want to take. Take's the wrong word, but I didn't really want. Once she got into it and we sort of got together and spent some time together, I didn't want to really be spending the whole day out the field, bowling 15, 20, 25 overs and coming home and talking about it necessarily. So she was always great like that. She'd ask a bit about it, and I think she'd pick up pretty quickly whether or not I'd want to talk about it or no, I would talk about it, and she was fine. So she learned a lot along the way. And also, I think what surprised her most, and not just about me, but about the way the team, the amount of time you have to spend as a team, the amount of work you have to do, being a bowler and being a bloke who was always very sore, the amount of physio and damage you did to your body, that was, and again, that's not me, that's everyone in general, being a bowler, I think. But she caught on pretty quickly that, it's not just to go out on a Saturday afternoon and have a run around and hit and giggle. It's there's a lot of work that has to go into it, and she had a lot of respect for what I did, but for what everyone did, especially on tour. They lived with us on tour. They were very lucky to come on tour, to be honest. But her and a lot of the girls soon had a pretty good appreciation for what we were doing and how hard it was.
That's really great, and it reminds me of a time I captained the 4th 11 down at Melbourne Uni. We were playing a game down in Casey Fields down in Cranbourne a year ago, and it was Anna and I have been together for a year and a half now, so it was a relatively fresh part of the relationship, and still so loved up that she offered to drive the 60 kilometres from her house to watch her play. And who was I to say no, right? And as skipper, I normally field it mid-off or, get under the lid. She came and she's stunningly beautiful. She's 3/4 Russian, 1/4 Japanese, right? Beautiful inside and out. But she came and she was standing down at fine leg. And the game was a dead rubber at that point. So I made the brave decision to go and put myself down that next to her, and between overs gave her a pash in front of all the Casey South Melbourne boys, and they still give me shit about it. The last game we played not that long ago. Rightly so. I think one of them even was going to dress up as me as the fancy dress end of season thing that they.
Right, yeah. I was going to say anyway. It's a game move. Game move to put yourself in front of your wife, partner, and even take a little peck on the cheek. It's game.
Yeah, it was a big flex.
Yeah.
I'd like you to do me a favour, Ryan, and I want you to close your eyes for a second, and I want you to transport yourself back to the year 2014 in Cape Town. And it's the third test.
Yeah.
And I want you to talk me through in every intricate detail that you can remember what happened.
So this is easy because I've been taught. I spoke about this yesterday with Usman Khawaja on another podcast. But 2014, that tour was huge because, South Africa, it's always a big tour. We'd obviously won. We won the Ashes 5-0 before that, and so it was a huge summer, and we were on such a high. And heading over to South Africa, I think they were number one in the world at the time. I think so. It was going to be a huge tour going over. I think previously we'd had a two match tour that we drew, and they pumped us in the. I think it was the first test we got bowled out for 41. So it was going to be a huge tour. So Mitch Johnson was flying. He was bowling quick. So we got to Centurion. We were pretty happy. Wicket was a bit spicy. We got through that. That was. I think we got that through 4 days. Then we moved on to Port Elizabeth, which we haven't had. Australia haven't played very well at. I think South Africa they barely lost, and they play very good cricket there. And I that was probably the first time I hadn't bowled that well. Even in Centurion, I didn't bowl that well. And going to Port Elizabeth, I did a little bit of work with Craig McDermott going in, just a little bit of extra work. But I didn't bowl that well. It wasn't as bad as I thought. It was just me being a bit, worrying about too much. It was probably the first time I think I'd had negative thoughts in playing for Australia. I actually thought that this could be it. This could be the finish because my knee was a bit sore. That was sort of bothering me, but that wasn't going to be an excuse because I played with it for virtually my whole Test career. I was still bowling decent pace. I was still hitting consistent length, but it wasn't. I wasn't hitting as consistent length as I had in the past. So I got pumped a bit in Port Elizabeth, and I remember standing at the back end of that game thinking, "Far out! I thought I was going to be dropped for the next Test. I thought if that's the case, and this could be my last, this could be it." And I never had thoughts like that when I was playing for Australia. I always thought that if I'm not bowling well enough, someone else is going to replace me because they are, and that's it. That's the way it goes. And because we'd had success, I still wanted that. I had the drive to do well and wanted to keep going. But so I ended up, again, sitting down with Craig McDermott. We had our psychologist Michael Lloyd, who still works with the team on tour. Some really good chats, and it was just I bowled. Usually, the preparation for a Test match, you start on a Thursday normally, or depends where you are. Wednesday's usually off. You have a good bowl Monday, Tuesday, get yourself right. I went back on the day before and bowled, I reckon, 6 or 7 overs. And Craig McDermott was at the top of my mark. I'd sort of say to him, "What do you reckon?" He'd say, "Mate, just keep bowling. You're going all right. You're looking good." I finished my time there, and again, very unusual to bowl day before the game. And he pulled me over and said, "Mate, you're a dickhead." I said, "What are you talking about?" Because I had a pretty good relationship. And he said, "Mate, you're a dickhead." I said, What do you mean? What do you mean? He goes, "Mate, you're flying. You're going good. You come across Hashan Amla and AB, and they batted really well." And they said, "Mate, you just come up. You just had an off day, but you're not going that bad." I was like, "Well, I don't know. I felt like, Anyway, going into that, I obviously got picked, and going into that Cape Town Test, 1-1 again. So it was a huge Test match. We obviously played pretty well, and I think Warner got 100. Clark might have got 100, I think, or I might have been mixing up with the one before. But we had South Africa where we wanted them. Long story short, we had South Africa where we wanted them. We had basically a day and 3/4 to bowl them out, or a day and a half to bowl them out. we knew that they were going to be tough because of what they did in Adelaide a couple of years before, where they batted. And so we again, fast forwarding a little bit again, we started off, I think we had them 3 for 15, and we're thinking, here we go, we're going to be, on the cans by about 5 o'clock today. We're going to have a good time here and really enjoy it again and top off a great summer in Australia and obviously tour over here. And then they just kept going and going and going. So it was unbelievable. To get to, again, fast forwarding, I don't want to bore you with all the details, but we got to the opportunity at the back. I got the opportunity at the back end to sort of come in and I guess parachute in and take the last couple of wickets. But the team had bowled so well, and the bowlers were out on our feet. We were just absolutely cooked. Again, as I said, my knee was done. I knew probably I tweaked a little bit during that test match, so I knew at the end of it that when I got home I was having surgery to hopefully fix it up a bit. And I'd pick up a bit of a hip flexor strain as well, and so it was all. And the bowl we bowled, I think we'd bowled 30 plus overs each, so we were all cooked. And then coming into that last 5 overs or 6 overs, we were just, Michael and the bowlers, so we got together, we were having a bit of a chat, and we knew that we had to win this game because if they had held out again, it was just like a loss. So we got to the back end, and I knew everyone was cooked. Mitch was he bowled his ass off, so he was bowling. He wasn't bowling the 150 thunderbolts. James Pattinson he had a stress fracture, so he was sore, and that I knew that was so. And by this time, Michael Clark had moved me to gully, so I didn't have to run in the field to try and save my legs, right? So I'm walking between overs. I know the time's coming that he's going to come to me. He's going to come. I know he's coming to me soon. I'm thinking, I really want this opportunity, but geez, I'm sore. How am I going to get up for it? And anyway, after this one over, I sort of took off from gully, and I saw him coming my way, and he ran up to me, he called out to me, and said, "Boy, come over here." And he said, "How are you going?" And I said, "Well, I'm sore. I'm a bit sore, mate." I said, "What do you need?" And he just sort of said, "Well, we need 2 wickets." And I said, "Yeah, I agree with that." And he said, "It's either you're going to get them or I'm going to have a bowl and get them." And I said, "Well, no disrespect to you, mate, but you're not bowling." And then I'm going to do it. I'm going to bowl. I'm not going to, in a situation like that, as one of the main bowlers, say, "No, mate, you bowl." So he threw me the ball, and obviously he said the rest is history. It wasn't. I sort of had an over to think about what I had to do, but looking back at it now and taking those last, it was one of those, as a kid moment, you dream. As a kid, you dream about as a potential. Everyone, the world's on you, and you have an opportunity to win a game of cricket for your country and your team that have worked so hard to be in this position. And as I said, yes, I was sore, but it's amazing when you're in that situation, in a tough situation like that, you just find something, and I did. And we had the ball moving around a bit as well, which helped. And to this day, I still don't know how the ball that I bowled to Dale Steyn hit the stumps, because it was sort of going at 4th or 5th stump, and it obviously hit a foot mark. But it wasn't until I heard, Brad Haddon actually went up first, and I didn't know what for. Then I sort of saw the bail, but it hit the foot mark and sort of went straight to the stumps. And then, the Morné Walker one, we had a great plan to him anyway. I think I put 1 away and then 2 back in, and the second one hit the stump. So I don't mean to waffle on a bit, but it was a great moment. It was a great thing. As I said, we'd had such a good period there against England, and to win over there was amazing.
It's not waffling. It's extraordinary. And you've been able to transport me to a moment. And I'm from New Zealand originally, Ryan. And I think that bowling and that victory that Australia got over South Africa won the hearts and the minds of certainly a lot of the New Zealand fans, for a team that's largely hated. But do you have capacity to remember any of the thoughts that are going through your mind when they're 9 down, when you're at the top of the mark? What are you thinking? Do you know exactly what's going on up here?
I'm just thinking I've got to get this wicket. But it was, as I said, we'd had really good plans to their tail, obviously. But they stonewalled us for a long time with Philander and Steyn. But I knew Morné could bat. We knew Morné could bat, but we knew also it was reversing, so it's always hard. As a tail ender, to come in when the ball's reversing, when it's swinging. You know, if it's scum barrel straight, it's not as bad. But so we knew that as well. I went, you know, and there's famous pictures of Darren Lehman saying, "Go around the wicket, go around the wicket," and we had that plan anyway. So I went up the pup straight away, Michael Clark straight away, and said, "I'm going around the wicket. I'm going to bring him in. I'm going to try and set him up. I might go away and then come in." And so my mindset is, you want this so hard, but you've got to calm down. You've got to sort of calm yourself down, because if you run in and I think Mitch and James Patton's made and said it to me, just take a breath. Let's go back to as if you're bowling to a batter. You know, don't try and blast out. Don't run in and try and, you know, bowl too fast. Get the ball in the right spot, and it'll take care of itself. So in those, you've got to have those sort of, you've got to you just got to calm yourself down, because at the time you're thinking, you know, you've got to get the right feel. You got the coach saying you've got to come around the wicket. You want to win the game. You want this, you want that, and everyone's riding on it, you know. So you just got to be able to calm yourself down. And I did that. I guess lucky enough, again, I was 30. What was I then? 34. So played a fair bit of cricket. I played a few tests by then as well. So you're not, you know, you're in that moment where you can just take your time and gather yourself at the top of your mark.
Do you remember how much pain you were in physically?
Yeah, absolutely. I do, because, as I said, my hip flexor had gone. I'd had a few Panadeine forts by then to try and numb the pain. Obviously, all legal, above board. It's you're allowed to take those, I guess, in that situation when you're a bit sore. But yeah, I do. I remember that was another thing I learnt in my knee, is that starting off was sometimes hard. You know, getting into my run up was sometimes hard. So what I sort of taught myself to do was I'd go a bit longer back in my run up to try and get a bit more momentum to the speed I needed to be at to hit my mark. And I'd always have to hit the same mark, and I'd always did hit the same mark. But you know, normally I'd have, I think it was 16-2, 18-4, 2 marks. I'd start probably a metre behind the back mark and go. Whereas if I was sore and really struggling, I'd go a bit longer, and I'd just get that bit of a run up. But especially on that sort of day, again, with my hip flexor, I just had to go a bit longer again. So I was probably running in from about 25 metres or 23 metres or whatever it was. But I got myself going, and again, with my knee the way it was, being my back knee, I sort of could control how long or how hard I sat my back leg. So if it had been my front leg, I wouldn't even got through. I wouldn't even played Test cricket probably. But because of my back leg, I could sort of get the jump right, and then. You know, still, I don't know how I did it to this day, to be honest, but I found a way just to land on it as long as I could. If it was sore, I'd get on it and get off it, but still have to be able to brace to get out of my front knee to get that pace. It's complicated, but I just found a way to do it, and it depended on what day it was and how sore I was. And again, with that little hip flexor problem I had as well, it was hard to get my back leg and drive through, so I was using a lot of my shoulder. And you know, those are the things I just had to work with and deal with and work out. If I didn't, then I wouldn't have bowled the way I probably did. I would have.
Was that the same knee that Dr. Bruckner was extracting fluid from?
That might have been the one. Yeah, he might have done that a few times over the period of time he was there. Well, he was there most of the time I was there, and you know, there were days where it was quite funny. There were days where I'd finish the day, and obviously I'd be straight on the ice in the bus and have to do it, you know, virtually all night. But there were days where it just blew up, like it was massive, and I couldn't literally walk on it. And it actually came a bit of a novelty with the team. But so everyone would sort of go off and have dinner with their partner or whatever it was, and then by 8:30, we're all going to the team room. Rhino's sitting there icing, but he's going to have fluid taken out of his knee. And those who could watch it would. Those who couldn't, they sort of had to duck out the room. But it was, it was quite funny, and it was amazing how it just relieved the pressure. It was you know, it had to be done. And you know, there were times where you'd probably get 10 mil out. There were times you might have got 40 mil out, 50 mil. So, but once it sort of did that, yeah, it was so, you know, and I managed to be able to get up the next day and do it. But again, and a lot of people say to me, how do you put yourself through that? Why do you want to? Well, I wanted to play cricket for Australia. Without doing that, I wouldn't have done it. So, and very lucky to have obviously Dr. Peter Bruckner there, Alex Contouris, all through that. and other physios, the whole medical staff of Cricket Australia were just amazing. They bent over backwards for me to get me fit or to do what I had to do to get my legs strong and my body strong. So I had an amazing support network around me. Without them, there's no way I would have got through that far.
Yeah, it's a reoccurring theme, this support network, and how important it really is just in life in general. You know, they talk about self-made people should never really say, I did this all myself, because there's always a litany of people that have helped you sort of get to that point. In my own experience, I'm reaching out for as much help as I can. And it's not because I want to show weakness. It's because I want to remain strong, you know, like that's the whole point of this stuff.
Yeah.
There was a period, I think a year or so later, when you're in England.
Yep.
When it all finished.
Yep.
Are you able to talk us through that period?
Yep, absolutely. It's it still feels like it was yesterday. I had come back again from I think I had a clean out. I do remember it. I don't remember so much before. I remember exactly what I did. But so I think I had a bit of clean out again with my knee, and then I was missing leading into the England tour in 2015. We had the West Indies tour. But Carter, the birth of Carter, my son, I stayed back to be with Cherie, and you know, it wasn't as if it was interstate. West Indies is a fair flight. It was about 25 hours to get there, or whatever it is. So it wasn't a place I could quickly get back from. So I ended up staying here. But at the time, I must admit, at the time, all I wanted to do was play. I was over the training. I trained so much, and I was getting sick of the niggles and the bit of the pain I was going through. But I also knew that I wanted to get through to England and potentially back. So a bit of a contradiction there, but I wanted to get back after that as well. So when I'll go through that in a minute. But so I had Pat Howard came to me, who was high performance manager at the time, and sort of said, obviously, mate, no brainer, you're not going to the West Indies because of the birth of your first son or first child. But he said, what do you need? Because he sort of, I think he'd heard whispers about, my daughter's just coming in now. Hop out, baby, I'm just on the phone. He sort of heard whispers about, about certain, I was struggling a bit. And so he sort of said to me, what do you need? And I said, well, I'm going to need some help with training. I'm going to need someone to virtually be in the gym with me the whole time. He said, right, done. So I had this S&C, the head S&C at Cricket Australia. Obviously, there was one on the road who was a very good mate of mine, but the S&C who became a very good mate of mine at Cricket Australia. Just hang on one second.
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to talk and I'm losing concentration.
You can kiss a good night if you like.
Yeah, I've already done that. She's coming out. She snuck back out of bed. I just lose my chain of thought thinking what she was going to do. So Pat Howard sat me down. He's what do you want? I need a trainer. He said, perfect. So we had sort of the head S&C who was going to be in there, and then the other sort of another S&C who was sort of our second there. He said, right, they're yours. So every session I did, I'd have mainly Andrew Weller, his name. I'm actually playing golf with him tomorrow, but he was there, and then his other David Bailey, who I think is at the Gold Coast Football Club now. He was with the women's team for a long time. They were there every time. Every time I trained, they were there, and they just looked after me. And they ran me into the ground and in a good way. And just there were times where they knew me well enough. They sensed that I was struggling a bit with it. So it was almost to the extent where they'd ring me in the morning and say, hey, go. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. They were going to drive and literally drag me to the gym, which they didn't have to because I was always going. Because I knew that if I hadn't have done what I had to do there, I wouldn't have got through any more cricket. Because, if I had stopped, I don't reckon I stopped doing something for the last probably 2.5 years because I knew if I had stopped, my body would have shut down and my knee would have been cooked. So they got me there, and I was the fittest I've ever been. My whole cricket career, I was that fit. I had in the last couple of weeks, I had my brother and my nephew, he was 18 at the time, come and actually train and do the last 2 sessions with me, and they walked away just again with another appreciation of how hard that I was going, but they were obviously how hard they were putting me through. So did that. Obviously we had Carter, great, and I was here for a week and then left. Well, obviously left and flew over, and going over there, I felt great. I was like, I'm 100% ready, 110% ready for this. And as I said earlier, I was sort of in the back of my mind, I was just going to see how I was going over there, and if opportunity that if I was going really well, when we sort of talking about retirement, I probably would have liked to have pushed it out. I think New Zealand were touring in Australia after that, so potentially come home and finish at home. If it wasn't quite going well, then that might have been probably the best time to maybe do it. And so I sort of had a bit of a thought about that. So yeah, got over there. We had some training sessions. Then came to we played our first Canterbury against Kent. It was our first tour game. I obviously missed that tour of the West Indies, but the guys played pretty well, and I was probably competing more with Josh Hazlewood, to be honest, and he was bowling the house down. So, and again, I never really worried about selection too much, but I wanted to play. I knew the work I put in, I wanted to play. So I never ever wanted him not to bowl well at training, but I was always just sort of peeking sideways to see how he was going. And he bowled the house down. He was going so well. But we got into this game, and I reckon I bowled 10, 11 overs, and they were probably the worst overs I reckon I've bowled. I just couldn't get my rhythm. I couldn't get where I'd put the ball. I was getting whacked, and then I reckon it was about my 10th, 11th or 12th over. I bowled this ball and I felt a little click in my knee, and I thought that's a bit different than I had a lot of clicks and a lot of clunks in my knee, and that was a little bit different. And so I finished the over, bowled another over, and I was a bit sore. So I went off, saw the physio. By this time, I think it was about 13 overs, and did all the tests, and it couldn't sort of get the pain that I was getting. So he said, "Oh, look, it's probably just a bit of a fragment that's moved or something that's floating around or whatever it is." So I went back out, and it was running around. It was a bit sore, and I'm trying to run different ways to not get it sore. And I think Michael came to me and said, "Are you right to go a few more overs?" I said, "Yeah, I've got to, because I'm going to have to bowl." And I was in pain, but it was the best 5 overs I bowled the whole game. And I was just, all of a sudden, I got everything back. My pace, the ball was moving, hitting the right areas, got a couple of wickets. So I thought, well, it's sore, but I can get through this. And so we had 3 days between, did all the physio, ice, and it still was really, really painful. And the last tour game was at Essex, so we went there in the morning, had to go early to try and prove that I was fit. Bowled about 6 balls and couldn't stand up. So, yeah, long story short, again, that afternoon I got the train to London, went and saw a specialist, got a scan, and then, yeah, the story began. The story goes on. I came back the next day. They were playing against Essex, and I was a bit of a pest, as I said before. I'm a bit of a bull at the gate. If I want to resolve something, or I need to know something, I want to know now. And Essex is it's a tiny change room. So because it's obviously a touring squad, so we had a big touring squad. They gave us like one of virtually their offices that they cleaned out for us. So it was a short walk up from where we were sitting on the fence doing the 12-man duty. So I was going up and down every 10 minutes to Alex and saying, "Alex, have you got the results? Have you got the results?" And he was like, No, I haven't. I'll let you know. And I kept doing it. He said, "Rhino, just get back on the boundary and shut up. I'll let you know," basically. And he wasn't the only one. There was a few of them around as well. Anyway, I reckon I gave it half an hour, 45 minutes, and I went back up, and I could see from the distance there was something on the screen. It was a scan on the screen. And I sort of wandered over and I said, "Oh, is that it?" And he goes, "Yeah, it is." And I said, "What's happening?" He goes, "Just give me a minute. I'm just about done." And I sort of looked at it, and I'm not an expert at reading X-rays. I should be, or MRI scans, but I could see something was a little bit different. I could just see a little line or whatever it was. And he said, "Just go down. I'll be there in a minute." Anyway, so it was only about 5 minutes, and he came down with the team manager, the coach, the S&C, took me into this little area. It was quite private, and he said, "Right, this is what's happened. Basically, I broke the top of my leg because I had no cartilage, which was the problem area. The bone sort of calcified, I guess, or eroded, and basically just split. It was almost like it was brittle and just sort of split down across my shin." So I said, "Oh, right, that's what's." I can now that explains the pain. There's a bit of a crack there. What can we do about it? He said, "Well, And he was pretty honest. Not a lot. We can't really do much now. I said, what about, is that the tour done for you now? He said, for me. He said, well, it's going to be tough. I said, can we tape it? Can we take pressure off it? I can manage it, like I have before. He said, no, that's not going to work. And then I said, well, what is David Young, who's in Melbourne, he's a genius and did a lot of all my knee stuff since I had dramas with it. What does he think? And he said, well, he's on, I think the manager or someone was ringing him. So David was a guy, Dr. Young was a guy that had done everything he could. There were a couple of times where I thought I was done. He did everything he could because he knew sportsmen have short lives, potentially, not all. He knew where I was and what I'd done and knew a bit of my history, and he did everything he could to keep me on the field. So Alex got my phone, he sent him the scan, he was talking me through it, gave me the phone. I said to Dr. Young, I said, he goes, how you going? I said, well, not great, to be honest, mate. I'm a little bit sore, but I need some good news. And I said, what can you tell me? He said, well, this is what you've done. This is what I can do to fix it. Basically have a bone graft from your hip, pack it in. And I said, does that mean, what does that mean playing-wise? He said, well, look, you to be honest with you, you're probably done. And that was right there and then was, well, is that fine? Is that, he said, well, look, you're not going to be able to make this series. You're done here, or you have to come home. I'm going to have to work on it. But with the cartilage that's not there, you're just going to keep banging away. And it's going to eventually happen again. So I thought, okay, well then, if he's saying that, and I got off the phone, obviously spoke to Alex, and he said, I think that's the best thing. You're going to keep doing it. You go on any, you saw anyway. To be honest, it wasn't until Mitchell Johnson came to my room that night once we all finished and got home, and that I was taking a lot of Voltaren and penalty fought to actually get on the field, which is not healthy. That it made me realise that, you know what, this is it. This is time to, to hang them up, I guess. And it wasn't. As I said, I had a feeling it was coming. I was always sort of thought I could be prepared for it. So I knew I was on thin ice for a couple of years, to be honest. But after the training I'd done and I got the strongest I'd been, the lightest I'd been, that wasn't the way it was supposed to go. And that was probably the hardest pill to swallow. And as I said earlier, I couldn't have done that again. I couldn't have trained the way I did. I was done. And to think that I have to go back and do all that again, and that thought right there again is another one that indicates that no, I can't. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to give it away now. So it was shattering, to be fair. And Chris Rogers tells a funny story every time he goes and does a speech. He still thinks I haven't retired, because it came to the time when all the boys came into that little room and psyched myself up. My big S&C mate was giving me a big pat on the back. Come on, you're going to get through this. Yeah, I'm good. As soon as Darren said, we've got some bad news, now we've got this and this, and he said, Rhino, do you want to say anything? I said, yeah, and that was it. I cried. And I couldn't get the words retirement out. I'm retiring. It was really emotional, and that's why Bucky Rogers says I haven't retired. So it was a very emotional time. It was, it was just so disappointing to get so close to. I'd played in England a few years earlier. We were so ready to win that series as well and have a good crack at that series. Obviously, we didn't, but it was such a disappointment. So that's the whole story. Again, probably waffling on it.
Oh, mate, it's brutal, and again, thank you for sharing this. This is really important because everyone's going through their own journey, and whether they're playing fourth grade at Melbourne University, contemplating their cricketing future, or they're playing for their country, I don't think it really diminishes the experience any less or more. And certainly, you're very well known for battling through a few injuries over the course of your career, but they didn't only just stick around from a cricketing point of view. Certainly, we spoke off air before. You and your wife had some challenges making babies at one point. Are you happy to share some of that with us? Yeah.
I mean, that was a huge. That was another experience in itself. I mean, it was something that you're as bad as it sounds, you grow up and you're scared of actually something happening. I mean, it's a natural thing, but we just got to the stage where it just wouldn't happen, and it was hard because the times where I needed to be around, I wasn't, and then when I was around, all of a sudden it wasn't working. So what's going on? And then we had a really good, a great doctor up here. We went and saw, and Carter was, I think we ended up having about 7 goes of IVF, which is huge. Yeah, so that was. Obviously there was an expense that came with that. Luckily, I was earning good money that it wasn't an issue. Which, I mean, I hate to think of the costs that some people have to that probably haven't got that. I was very lucky and am very lucky with what I earned through playing cricket. But it was just a horrible experience because the stress that I was playing, but the stress that was going on Sheree, it's not working. It's her fault, and it's dealing with all that sort of stuff. That it was quite bad. And then you have to be there. You have to be around at certain times to when things are going, with the fertility doctors. I'd have to leave. There were team meetings that were scheduled. I'd have to, because we didn't really want it to be all public around them, so we didn't know what was going on. But it was hard because going up to the coach and saying, "Mate, I've got," and Buff Graham. Darren Lehman was amazing. So was Michael Clark. The whole management were. They knew that, family was virtually number one. That's what we've got to look after. So you sort of pulled Darren aside and said, I've got a meeting at 11 o'clock. I've got to be at the fertility doctor at 11:15. He said, yeah, no worries. Just go and speak to Michael. They brought the meeting forward for me a couple of times, got a bit later. And, so that stress was quite... was quite bad. It was confusing, I guess, as well. The why wasn't happening. So, but eventually it did, and then we got lucky the second time. It was still sort of IVF, but it was sort of I think it was the first go. It happened quite quickly, and the kids are only sort of 15 months apart, so it's worked out quite well. But as I said just before, it's what some families or some people go through, it's horrible, that it can't happen, and the cost of it. And, I really do feel for a lot of people. And I don't mean to sort of being condescending there, but it's a amazing process. But what we also found out at the time, and Sheree was quite, we both were, I guess, probably more her, that not wasn't embarrassing, but she didn't really want people finding out and knowing. But what I learned, the times I obviously went to the clinic a few times, how unbelievably common it was, and how many people were actually struggling and were going through that process. It really surprised me, and just as I made the point of saying to Sheree, say, look, it's not you, it's just the process. It's not working, and we're not the only ones going through it. So life's, it's not that bad, and I guess the rest is history. We got 2 beautiful kids out of it, but it's great now, obviously, yeah.
Oh, it's brilliant. And I share that, Anna and I, my partner, we've been trying and misfiring a few times and even gone through an ectopic. And the associated shame with keeping it in, I reckon that feeling of being able to become comfortable sharing it and understanding that lots of other people are going through very similar stuff is a really liberating thing. And it's, certainly that feeling of like, why is there a dysfunction in me? And certainly the women take a lot of that blame upon themselves, which is really unfair, because a lot of the time it's just to do with a genetic mismatch or the chromosomal mismatch, like
chemical,
and any number of reasons that could be caused. And we'll have fun trying and continuing. And if we go down that IVF route, so be it. And we're also very philosophical, where if it gets to a point where it's not even possible using all of those options, then that's our opportunity to do something different. And you can build a family or whatever if you put enough effort and want towards something. Yeah. And there might be an opportunity to take on children that don't have parents. There's all good, great things that come out of this adversity. And
correct.
And, again, I'm really grateful that you're comfortable sharing this with us because I think, you are a human being, despite the fact that you're this extraordinary cricketer and have forged this amazing career. Your injuries and these other issues, you are a human being. Ryan Harris is not a robot, for the record. He's not a robot.
Yeah, no, it's exactly right, and that's again, that's something, I guess, a little bit of that humble, I guess, and you know, I was taught again from my parents to always be humble, and the best advice I probably received was from Darren Lehman: always treat people the way you want to be treated, and you know, those words have stuck me. Healing time that when I was about 19, you know, or actually might have been my 21st, and my 21st, you know, so you've got to be humble, and again, I don't know too many people now, or cricketers, especially in my time. I didn't play with many, come across too many that are selfish, that are stuck up, because if someone sort of started heading that way or would say something along those lines in the teams I played in, they got pulled into the line pretty quickly, or they went in the team. So, and that's, you talk about it, Justin Langer looks at now. He wants good cricketers, but he wants very good people in the team as well, and that's what he looks for now. So, well, I learned that from a young age, and I did something that, well, to me it was the best job in the world. I had the best job in the world to bowl the first ball in a Test match, but it was something that I was very lucky to be able to do, and something I never ever thought I would do. Test cricket for me was never really on the radar, I guess, because I didn't think I was good enough. One day cricket maybe, and in the end T20 cricket, but to do what I've done and you know, meet the people along the way, I've met some unbelievable, you know, legends of the game that are just good people, and I've had such a lucky time. I wish I had gone for another 15, 20 years. You know, that's life.
Yeah.
It is life. But yeah, I've been very lucky to be able to do what I've done.
Who's the most inspirational person that you've met that the rest of our viewers and listeners would have heard of?
Good question. That's a tough one off the top of the head. There's so many. Far out. There's so many. There's not one I can put my finger on. I've just had so many good people that, you know, again, I use Darren. Darren Lehman's a good mate of mine still, as I said. He's given me some great advice, even still does. Yeah, I remember the school teachers that have given me great advice. So, you know, that's a real hard one. I don't know if I can answer that. You know, I've got so many good people, you know, that have just I've got bits and pieces of advice along the way that it's just contributing to what I did and where I got to, I guess. And yeah, that's a really tough question. I have to have a think about that and get back to you with that one. But that I've just been lucky to have some great people around, I guess, through my whole life, you know.
Well, look, speaking of advice, Ryan, there's a young fan of yours who's an up-and-coming talent at Melbourne University Cricket Club by the name of Max Hatzoglu. And I mentioned to him last night that I was speaking to you, and you've been involved with some pathways. And he was curious for me to ask you, what are some of the attributes that the selection committee are looking for these up-and-coming talents?
One, as I said before, you're a good person. You got good life balance, that you can do something outside. This is what I look for. But a lot of what they do look for, you obviously you can, well, depending on, well, I can't remember what Max is. Max, I can't remember what he does, but I know that name.
He's a keeper, batsman. He does everything really. He's like
so creating opportunities, you know, scoring runs. But the main one that we've looked at the time is that we've tried to really develop good people in our pathway, and we've been very impressed with what states have done with that. But you've obviously got to have the basic skill of a keeper. You know, the movements, scoring runs, basic techniques of batting. They're the attributes that we look for. I guess that one thing that we've sort of been criticised for in the pathway is that we sort of had the CA11 a lot. We've had that for a few years now, and the pathway, there's been a lot of emphasis put on, and it's almost a feeling as if you don't make it into the pathway or the state teams, you're almost being overlooked, which you're not. That's a message that we always tell. I had the CA11 teams in the national championship, so one thing that Graham Manu, who's a pathway manager, always, you know, he says the last couple of years, these kids that are picked in the CA11 are recognised for doing pretty well in the previous or in that championship that they get picked from. But this is not an Australian team, and this is not a a team that if you're in this team, you haven't made it. You know, and I want to get that message out as well. I can't stress enough. If you don't make it underage team, don't worry. It's not. It's obviously nice to be recognised, but don't stress, because that part of the journey is a very small. Well, you know, I guess the ultimate for the pathway is under 19 World Cup, which I've been lucky enough to be at two of them. But again, not everyone who goes to that World Cup is going to go and play state cricket or go and play for Australia. So. You know, that's one message I would like to get out. It's not the be all end all, because you're going to, from under 19 level, you're going to go into grade cricket and premier cricket, and that's where you're going to learn hopefully learn a lot of your skills and crafts anyway. But yeah, look, we really want good people. We want guys with really good attributes of showing that they can. Well, he's a keeper, so again, showing good movement, catching the ball. Working hard, you know, all that sort of stuff. So I've been lucky enough to sort of be on that side of the fence and looking at that over the last couple of years.
Well, there you go, Max. You heard it straight from the horse's mouth. And I'd like to. There's a great quote that Steve Martin, the actor and comedian, uses a lot, and it's "Be so good that they can't ignore you."
That's right.
And I really love that. And I think, you know, you're not going to ascend to those ranks if you are a dickhead. And the clubs are switching on, you know, no dickhead policies. I know JL's a big fan of that. Saw him talk about it a couple of years ago. And, you know, if there's an opportunity, if you're down in Victoria during the regular season, Ryan, we'd love to have you come down and observe some of the bowlers down at Melbourne University.
Love to.
Parkville there.
Yeah, I'd love to.
It's an open invite.
Love to.
I'd love to talk to you all night, Ryan, because there's so much great stuff just coming out of this. But I'll wrap this up shortly, because I'm very respectful of your time.
No problem.
I want to finish on a moment in your life that you recognise as a real crossroad, and it can be from any age. A moment in your life when you realised either what your passion was, or that you knew that your life was going to work out in a way that you were going to be content. Do you have one of those to share?
I've probably already mentioned it. As I said, that for me, there's probably two, to be honest. There's probably that moment when I was, again, the contract going back, and I'm not going to repeat it all, but being in that stage where if I haven't got a contract, what am I going to do? Because I didn't have anything to fall back on, which will lead me into my second point a bit later on. But that right there is far out. You know, I've had something that I'd earned, a contract. I'd had it there for a number of years. I'd taken advantage of it, and now it's gone. And then at first, as I said, I was angry, but it was me. I wanted to blame other people. I had good chats about that, and thankfully, as I said, I had good people behind me. There was no one else to blame than me, but myself, to lose that opportunity. You know, I had an opportunity that only 22 people get a year in a state. I mean, how many people play cricket in Melbourne or around the country in their grade clubs or premier clubs that want to have that contract that I've got, and I've just basically treated it with contempt and. So that's what I talk about. Again, I don't want to repeat everything we've gone through, but that's the next step I took. I had some conversations and some realisations that, well, hang on, I've got another chance, albeit it was a couple of weeks later, that I can't let this one go. And again, it was when I did, I took some advice on what I do. I got a little bit of help with some psychologists, all that sort of stuff, and which I must admit, I never really believed in psychologists and psychology and all that sort of stuff. I dived a lot more into it later on in my career, but that sort of helped. But I guess that was probably one. And the other one is like I mentioned before, I didn't study, I didn't do anything. And I've just come out, I'm literally probably at that point again now, to be honest, because I've come out of it. I'm not with this Cricket Australia anymore. We've sort of, this crazy situation in we're in at the moment that, and I'm not the only one, because there's millions of people that have been, unfortunately, lost their job. But I'm at that stage now, and I want to go into, I want to stay in coaching, but there's not that many jobs. There's only limited jobs. So if I haven't got that, what do I do? And I'm exploring that right now. So I'm probably going through that second stage or second crossroad right now, and what I'm going to do. How am I going to support my family? How am I going to, as I said before, I've been lucky enough. I've got some good things behind me, with I guess houses and that sort of stuff. But that's long term. That's not, I don't want to have to sell anything to live. So that's something that I'm going through now. So that's probably the second one, which I haven't been anywhere sort of close to this, because I've had cricket and I've had a really good job at CA that's no longer there. So as I said, my goal is to stay in coaching, but there's not, coaches there's lots of coaches for not many jobs. So they're probably two are probably good examples.
Well, if it's any consolation, Ryan, I think you'd make a fantastic professional keynote speaker, and I'll be happy to send you some links of some really amazing masterclasses that you can do, because like everyone's got a story to tell, but particularly when you've got a profile and you've gone through such great adversity, all good things come out the other side of this. And this is my passion. Like the podcast and the coaching and the speaking are all sort of intertwined, and I get an opportunity to listen, which is a new thing for me, and I'm enjoying the process. And this is this new world that we live in, and it's exciting. It's, for me, COVID-19, I'll hand on heart say this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I don't wish any of the ill or anything on anyone, but it's pushed me into an area that I was planning on doing a year from now, and I'm like, okay, ditch burn. All right, bring it on. And it's exciting, it's an opportunity, and that's the way that I choose to live my life now. All of these things that happen are either good or bad. They're just opportunities to prepare me for the next chapter of my life. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing. Ryan, I'd love to wrap this up with one final question, and then we'll let you go. Can you tell our audience how to bowl an outswinger?
We've got video. I can get a ball. Can I get a ball? Is that going to help?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, of course.
So this ball's been sitting in my study, and I'm just trying to get it on camera for a long time.
Remember, a lot of people will be listening to this only as well.
Yeah, cool. So I'm holding, for those who are listening, I've got a brand new Kookaburra turf ball, so a good test match ball. I always, now this varies. So this, as you said, this is the way I used to do it, because there's so many different ways you could do it, and little tweaks and positions. So my sort of, the peace sign, I guess the best way to describe it, I sort of wrap my fingers not straight up and down. So I might have had a bit of an angle, so that maybe the first slip, not too much more, maybe first slip, or maybe just between the keeper and first slip. That was sort of the angle I had. And I would muck around with how far my fingers were. So if I'd have days where, and this is what I was talking about before, certain days you might feel different. I'd have my fingers a bit closer, I might have them a bit wider, but I'd have to go and feel. And then on the bottom, I tweaked with this to the day I finished. I'd have the thumb on the, I guess, what they call it, the joint of the ball. I don't know the name they call it, where the ball joins, seam, yeah. Or I'd have it on a bit off that. So if we can just see that there. Some days it'd be there, some days it'd be there, and very rare would it be on that side. And obviously the shiny side, which for me was always the Kookaburra side. I hated when normally the bowlers would decide, but if someone decided they had to shine the AG Thompson, as we call it, it was normally the Kookaburra side being the shiny side. To a right-hander, what I'm talking, that's always going to be on the leg side. And then obviously the idea is to try and keep that seam up nice and straight. And if you've executed it correctly, it's going to had that little angle going to first slip. Now, again, you can muck around with that each day. It depends the way you feel. You can go a bit steeper. You can go straighter. There were times when I tried to bowl straight balls, and I had my wrist, and I don't mean to sound arrogant at all, but my wrist was good enough that the ball kept swinging. So I'd have to go across seam again, which you don't want to do too much because you're going to ruin the ball. Quick one to the in-swinger is the opposite. So you just flick that around the shiny side on the outside again. The trick with the in-swinger, just quick, I know we're talking about outies, but I'd always have my seam straight down the wicket. When I first started bowling when I was young, I always had it a bit more angled, but it swung so much that it did too much. You only need the ball to move a fraction. You don't need it to go from pitch leg hit off, because it's a very hard ball to bowl. It very rare does it do it, and if it does too much, the batter's going to miss it anyway. And that's more I bowled probably the left-hander. And if I was bowling the in-swinger to the right, it was just a change-up if I was trying to set him up. But the outswinger for me was obviously my bread and butter. It was, but then if it wasn't swinging, I had days when it wasn't swinging, I just needed to keep the seam up, because the seam's up, the ball, it'll take care of itself. There were times it was dead straight. There were times where it started to wobble a bit. I didn't necessarily try and bowl the wobble seam. I know Josh Hazelwood's a big fan of that. He learned that. Stuart Broad in England is a massive fan of that, but he's a massive, unbelievable executor of that. David Saker taught that with Stuart and also Josh Hazelwood. And even Pat Cummins. So if the ball's sort of wobbling a little bit, it's still up. It's going to go that way or that way. And that's it. If you don't know what it's going to do, the batter's got no idea what it's going to do. So so that's the basics. It's just getting your wrists. It's really hard to talk about how you're going to get your wrists. You've got to get a good landing at the crease, good balance at the crease. And if you're doing that, we always talk about run up. If you get your run up in a good balanced rhythm, good speed, you're going to put yourself in a great position where you're balanced. Your jump will be good, your landing should be good, and hopefully you're going through to the target to the batter. That's the basic. That's what we talk about with fast bowling. And if you're balanced to the crease, your wrists hopefully up behind the ball like that and not falling off it, which some people do. But the idea, keep it up nice and straight. If it's not swinging, don't worry. But if the seam's up, it still can seam. So that's the art of fast bowling, basically, in a nutshell.
Thank God you retired, because that would have to cut that off from the overseas audience.
Yeah,
Ryan Harris, you've been an absolute superstar guest today on the Become Your Own Superhero show. Thank you for being so raw and authentic. It's been an absolute delight. Ryan Harris, everybody.
Thanks, Logan. It's great to chat to you, mate. Thank you.